in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Oh, well. There we are, just like that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Case Closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. As you come and go ahead and click that like button. All-star panel, highest level conversations, most relevant topics in this space, ladies and gentlemen. And as we come in, let's note and highlight what we're trying to do here today. On the fun side of things, we're going to make some predictions. We're going to look and say, hey, let's place some bets, right? Human beings like to place bets. We like to gamble. We like to make predictions and see if we win or lose. Now, the way in which we make these predictions is very important. Even if we know we're going to be wrong, we need to have a modality, a framework, some kind of something. And I'll give an example, since I know that I'm highly accused out here in these streets of being too abstract. But hey, you could be a coupon clipper, for example, right? That's what they call a value investor. And this is a personality type. That's their framing. They're always looking for deals. They're always looking for things that are undervalued monetarily, giving their value otherwise. That's their thing. Their eyes are cut for that stuff. If you're a coupon clipper, you know yourself. If you're not, you know there's no way in which you're going to be looking at the world through that frame. There are these other types of investors which are called growth investors. They're the opposite of value investors. They're trying to find the things that are not valuable yet, but see potential. They're projecting into a future where this thing will grow into and all that kind of stuff. So these are just examples of frameworks with which you bet and put your money where your mouth is, because that's what we're going to be doing today regarding 2024, what's going to happen politically, what's going to happen to your paychecks economically and whatnot. Dr. Thunder, how's it going?
I'm all right. I'm doing all right.
He does it all right.
It's the first Sunday of 2024. Went to church. Brought my son with me. So it's an Orthodox service, been the same thing for thousands of years. So definitely some continuity. But it's also so Theophany was yesterday, and Theophany is the day after the 12th day of Christmas, right? So you got the 12th day of Christmas, then you have Theophany, and then you have actually today is it today or is it tomorrow? No, I think it's today is Old Calendar Christmas. So the Julian calendar, the Orthodox folks that are on the Julian calendar, I'm on the Gregorian calendar. But they're in communion, but you just have the old and new calendar folks. So yeah, it's a new year, first Sunday of the new year, just after Theophany. Always a celebratory time and a good time to sort of start making some of these predictions that you're talking about.
100%. Shout out to Dr. Galem in the house, always holding it down. Always, perhaps the top super chatter on this channel, always dropping those pounds sterling in the building. 10 pounds. Thank you very much. Seem to be an Android user there, at least not an iPhone user. Says Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Right. And Kaizo, how's your mic doing? We good? Your internet
Yeah,
okay? Everything stable?
great.
Not
New
bad. You
year,
actually
new year.
New Year, new. Oh, good one. That's actually funny. People actually do say that, don't they? Okay, so let's get right into this. Okay, let's get right into this. Let's start with politics first and foremost, right? And we're gonna start with whom we think the winner is gonna be. The question is, who is your biggest political winner? It could be a person, it could be a party, it could be an interest group. Okay, let me start. Let me go ahead and put my money on the table. I say Vladimir Putin, right, is going to be winning this year because of what happened in 2023, because of where he was. All this is relative, right? You can say, oh, his country is at war. But remember, he has weathered the storm up to this point, and it is not likely that the United States will stay firm with regards to continual aid to Ukraine, right? They're going to ask them to negotiate. Now, Zelensky is not in that position. He's not wanting to negotiate and things of that nature, right? 100% understood. But I say that Vladimir Putin is looking good. He was better received in Saudi Arabia than when Biden went to Saudi Arabia and gave MBS a fist bump, no warmth or whatever. It was an awkward meeting. So he's also seen as a hero amongst like the BRICS people, right? The D-dollar people, that whole kind of thing. So I think Vladimir Putin is came out of a deep whatever, and it seems like there's, in other words, I don't see any checkmate for him. That means he won, and that win will become more manifest in 2024. Let's start with Kaiser on this one. Biggest political winner, it could be a candidate, a party, interest group, whatever. For 2024, your prediction.
Hey, I think it's Israel, right? Looking what's going on in the Middle East, most of the American allies, Britain, France, etc., are going to be on Team Israel. So I do see that whole thing turning down, and also there's reasons why I'm saying this. When I say Israel, obviously it means America as well. Recently, Ethiopia has made a deal, signed and everything, with a country called Somaliland. Now, technically, Somaliland is not a country, according to United Nations or the African Union, but some countries do actually acknowledge it, and Ethiopia is now one of them. So the fact that Ethiopia has done a deal with them in order to get access to the Red Sea, aka the same place that we talked about last time, where the Yemeni rebel group was commandeering ships, right? The fact that that's happening right now, America is obviously an ally to Ethiopia to an extent. So I believe that's already the case resolved in that sort of shipping situation, because they can actually now take the shipping route through the side of Somaliland, which is literally in that same region. So I believe America, Israel, have definitely won this year, because one thing that people thought, or rather think, is, okay, great, now we have this new Yemeni group coming in and stealing ships. Some shipping companies, the second largest one, saying, oh, we're not going to be going through that route in the Red Sea anymore. We're going to go all around Africa. Right now, this is the kind of situation that would allow America, Ethiopia, and Somaliland to now renegotiate some things. And here's the thing: America doesn't actually recognize Somaliland, but America supports Somaliland. So I think this is going to be a great win. And obviously, American oil companies are looking to start digging out the trillions of barrels of oil in Somaliland in the offshore area. So yes, I believe Israel and America are winners in that whole Middle Dust conflict.
And you might also add that, yeah, they maybe have gotten the opportunity to do certain things that they wanted to do, or certain things perhaps that they needed to do, depending on how you look at it from the security standpoint regarding, or shall I say after October 7th, right? So they got that opportunity, if you will. Not that the killing of babies is an opportunity, or it depends on the kind of person you are, right? Okay, Israel, United States, that thing over there, winning 2024. I mentioned Vladimir Putin. Dr. Thunder, what do you think? Who's going to be the biggest political winner if you project into the future for 2024? What's your? And we're going to come back, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, next at the end of the year, we're going to check to see if let's see if Kaiser was wrong on this or if I was wrong. Or yeah, go ahead, Dr. Thunder. Check 1, 2. Dr. Thunder, are you muted or am I gone into hyperspace?
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the biggest winner. I think the biggest winner politically is going to be Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I think that's the biggest winner. I think he's still going to be able to run, even though they're trying to do some weird stuff to prevent him from getting on ballots and charging him and all of this stuff. I still think that he'll end up being the biggest winner. Not because I think that a Donald Trump presidency is particularly good for the country. The first one about ripped the country apart, but I think that's the likely. I mean, you look at the Democrats. I think the only person that folks want less than a Trump is Joe Biden. So, I didn't say that the right way. I don't think what I meant to say was I don't think that Biden has a chance. The other Democrats, do you even know who the other Democrats are that are running? No, we have no idea. I don't think that any of the Republicans probably have a real chance to beat Biden.
Interesting.
There it is.
Now, I'm not gonna, because the next question has to do with the biggest political loser, but I'm not gonna hold you to say, okay, well, so then therefore Biden is the biggest political loser, in your opinion. But let's get right. Continuing with you, you have said that Trump will be the biggest political winner 2024. How about the biggest political loser in 2024?
Okay, so I think the biggest loser is okay, so the way that the pendulum swings, and it seems in some ways it's kind of wildly swings. I actually think that Republicans are the loser.
Mm.
So I say they're the loser because if this dude gets in, then all of the same rhetoric, anti-Trump stuff, anti-Republican stuff. Republicans are all racist, and look, this is your guy that's in here. I think you're going to have all of that stuff. So as far as state elections, local elections, and whatnot, I think a lot of that stuff is going to end up trending Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason. And this is not really, it's not rocket science. This is basically what happens. Just change the parties and I could say the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that always happens. So I'll say that in general, I think Democrats are going to end up being, along with Trump being the winner politically, him individually, I also think that Democrats are going to end up being the winners. And consequently, the Republicans the losers.
Nicely put there. So Trump's your biggest political winner. The Democrats going to win along with him, given the way things flow cyclically, pendulum-wise, as you mentioned. And okay, that's a good one. Let's find out. Putting the money where the mouth is, making our bets, ladies and gentlemen. Again, as you come in, go ahead and click that like button. This is case closed. So, Kaizo, before I get to you, Kaizo, let me mention what who I think is going to be the biggest political loser 2024. I'm going to mention a couple. One being a continuation of what I mentioned as far as the biggest political winner. I said Vladimir Putin. I think Ukraine is going to be one of the losers, right? And for obvious reasons, lots of able-bodied men dying. They're getting hit demographically because of that, right? In terms of taking out that particular very important slot of people, right? Young, able-bodied men, and the fact that I don't think America will stand firm again, as I mentioned, in with giving them aid. There's going to be a nudge for Ukraine to negotiate. Zelensky doesn't want to negotiate anything with Russia that involves losing territory, but I think they're going to end up losing territory, and they would have lost all those able-bodied men. And I don't think America was ever willing to go all the way with them to begin with, in terms of support, going against Russia directly, that kind of a thing. So Ukraine, I also think Netanyahu, you mentioned Israel was going to be biggest political winner. I think Netanyahu within Israel is going to lose. And one more loser. California went from 76 billion surplus in 2022 to a 68 billion deficit now, right? And San Francisco is an S-hole and things like that. So I think California is going to continue to lose. It's going to lose big time. And many of the things that go hand in hand, many of the experiments that get tried out in California, and it is what it is. There's some states that are, and generally they tend to be liberal states, where things, experiments get tried out. I think there's certain things that have been tried out in California, with San Francisco being the epitome of this particular type of experiments, that have been shown to fail money-wise, fail socially, and so on and so forth. But go ahead, Kaizo. Biggest political loser of 2024.
Yeah, so I think the biggest political loser of 2024 is actually the Afri-Exim Bank, right? It's a political group trying to de-dollarize, and also BRICS. The reason I say this is because all these countries, not all, but many of these countries in BRICS, and also these African and other third world nations, thinking that they're de-dollarizing, they're only having increased inflation rates, right? Ghana went over like God knows how many percent, like 50%. Nigeria went like crazy amount as well. Even Kenya went over by 6%. So I think that this whole endeavor to de-dollarize is going to fail. We'll see in 2024 that there will be talks about the effectiveness of BRICS nations. Yeah, so BRICS and Afri-Exim Bank, all these pro de-dollarization campaigns will fail.
Okay. Yes. So I mean, I and perhaps this is a question to you, and also a general clarification of what you're saying. So generally speaking, there is actual de-dollarization, right? Which means, okay, people actually switching in a significant way to using other currencies or the modalities of exchange that exclude the dollar, like something you can actually quantify, right? There's that thing. And then there is the kind of the political thrust of let us de-dollarize, let us talk about it, and then let us form certain kinds of institutions, whom depend in certain ways on the actual de-dollarization stuff, such as some of those institutions you mentioned. And those are the things that you're saying will fail, right? Because the de-dollarization itself is even if it's going to happen, it's a long game, right? That you're not going to get any sufficient push enough to sustain any kind of institutions such and such. But go ahead and clarify.
Yeah, I think, see, what people don't understand is that the dollar is the most liquid capital that we have right now, right? Those people would have held on gold in the 50s or even before that, right? Let's say the 40s until now. They would have made exponentially more money, and they would have been able to offload those gold bars into cash, right? That's true. However, gold is not liquid, and that's why governments like Ghana keeps exporting gold so that they can exchange it for dollars so that they can utilize something liquid. So when you have an overwhelming sort of usage of a system like the dollar, you can't just get rid of it, because it's almost like it's more than trust, right? The dollar is more than trust. The dollar it's almost like it's a metaphysical capital that people can use, right? Everyone knows the dollar is king. Sure, the dollar goes through its own inflation locally, but if you compare the dollar to any external market, it's almost always, and I'm talking about an irrelevant country, I'm not talking about irrelevant countries, it's almost always more inflation to the other person's currency, meaning the dollar for the time being, for the foreseeable future, is going to be king. The only time that the dollar might be replaced is stuff like Solano, and at that point, right, in the next 5, maybe 10 years, that's when now you're creating a new market. But again, the dollar will still be utilized to purchase these, to act as a price setter for these sort of commodities. So I guess what I'm saying is the very, as you mentioned, like the very actionable, intentional sort of de-dollarization campaigns like the BRICS or the Afri-Exim Bank, I don't think these are going to go very far. I know India and Kenya already agreed to trade in the local currencies / even do barter trading for tea, in Kenya's case, to India, and then India rice to Kenya, etc. But I don't see it happening, right? These systems keep forgetting there's a middleman who has to be paid, and the middleman wants to be paid in a currency that makes sense for them with all the other business interests that they have, aka paying other people and buying other things that's outside of this very sort of localized market. So no, the dollar is not going to go away in the next 5 years. The BRICS and Afri-Exim Bank definitely going to fail in the next 5 years. It might go away after that though.
Interesting. And just a little bit of context for the last point that you made there regarding middlemen and such. So someone may say, hey, de-dollarization, okay, the goal here is to get away, sidestep the dollar with regards to economic exchange so that you don't have to depend on gaining foreign exchange and being sucked into the kinds of behaviors it necessitates. And then one might say, well, how about you just decide with your neighbor to exchange goods, right? So Kaizo and Nigeria decide that, hey, they're just going to exchange tea for rice or cassava or whatever. But in order to get the tea to to X and the rice to Y, there are many middlemen who want their dollars, right? So it's not just the tea is not just going to magically appear, and then you're going to run into the dollar problem in many different aspects. So you have to create a whole value chain that is bought in to your non-dollar type of exchange, blah blah blah. But
hey, Ike, real quick. So there was a lot of speculation about de-dollarization, and it was thought that maybe we're going to move to the Chinese currency or something else, right? What do you think? Why is it that you think that is not likely? Why do you think that the dollar will still be the standard?
Okay. So I mentioned that there is the actual quantifiable, how many dollars are being, how much economic activity is actually taking place, using the dollars, as actually exchanging dollars. And then there is the political thrust, the forming of organizations, the talking about de-dollarizations, the little deals that get made and then amplified and such. Now, the reason why the quantifiable thing is not going to change, and the quantifiable problem here, it can be akin to a physical problem. I'll try to kind of create a physical analogy. And it is mainly because of that this kind of political thrust is not going to succeed. Basically, it's what Kaizo said. It's the most liquid. So in physical terms, there's an ocean over there, and you're trying to overtake this ocean by filling this particular, dam and some of the project you're going to dig, and you can't just infinitely fill it up because in both in real life and economic terms, in actual currency terms, it doesn't work that way. You have actual channels or pipe sizes or whatever that is filling this thing, and you're competing with the ocean, right? And this thing that we're talking about, the water in here, is the liquidity, meaning currency, which, by the way, those middlemen that we talked about want. Rather than you telling that middleman who wants, because again, Kaizo and I have decided we're going to sidestep the dollar. He's going to give me tea, I'm going to give him cassava. But the middlemen, the shipping or the whatever, blah, 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 they want to deal with the ocean water because everybody can sell stuff with the ocean water. There's always a market for the ocean water. You can always buy and sell it at a dime. That's what liquidity means. Like liquidity means that it's easy. There's a huge amount of buyers and sellers. Always willing buyers and willing sellers. Always willing. You don't have to get into any kind of special stuff. And then you go and you tell them, hey, I'm building this dam, and in about 700 years, it'll become as big as the ocean, right?
Okay.
So you
Okay.
see
Now,
the inertia.
now
I'm
let
sorry,
me.
go ahead.
Okay. So now let me ask you this follow-up. So what do you think could cause that to change? What would have to happen for de-dollarization to actually be a potential reality?
So unfortunately, or yes, one way to, first of all, one premise to state that is very important with regards to this de-dollarization, because we're talking about a currency, all fiat currencies go to zero in history, right? All fiat currencies completely, go down, right? And they are synonymous with the rise and the fall of the empire in question. So if through some internal rot, which tends to be the way in, the way in which we perceive empires to collapse is internally from kind of internal rot. Now, I think it is a perception, and because it's easily grabbable. It's not necessarily just because you see some rot from within that it's actually not being created from outside. But anyways, it's going to be the collapse of the empire itself, because a lot of America's power right now is actually not just, we have Apple and we have Google, YouTube, which we're on right now. In other words, this kind of America specializes in the 0 to 1 innovation stuff. China specializes in the replication, literally through manufacturing and stealing as well, stealing of ideas, right? Stealing of American technology. It's not just that, but there's the dollar hegemony that makes it such that because of this massive liquidity that we described earlier, America can print money to pay off its debts. Hence the American Treasury bill. If you loan money to America, it's the most solvent, highest grade. You will get your money back because they can simply just print money. Even if they have, in other words, even if they have to print money, they will just print it and give you your money. So it's almost impossible for you not to get your money, right? And it won't lose value because it's a massive ocean. Printing into an ocean versus printing into a little bucket, blah, 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 that kind of a thing. So it will necessarily be the collapse of the empire. Collapse means you just become like in England. Doesn't mean that, you have to be, under the pit now. There will now be a new currency, whatever it is. It used to be the pound sterling, right? Now then the dollar, and it'll be something else.
Solana, Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. But I hope that answers you, Dr. Thunder. And I don't know if you're muted or if you had a.
No. I just thought that was good. That's good information for folks.
Yeah. I saw you were doing your news correspondence thing there. I know. So now let's one more thing on the political end, right? Because RFK represents, for example, RFK running independently and whatnot, and the heat he's been getting. And there's a general, from polls, right? And you don't put too much on polls, but both polls, I kind of look at polls as kind of it's like a magnified anecdotal evidence, right? Because it would kind of match the kind of buzz that you get as well, regarding people preferring third parties, right? So, and the idea here is not that third parties are gonna overtake the, kind of duopoly we have, but it only needs to be a certain percentage, right? Shout out to critical mass, whatever that critical mass number is, but it's a great concept for, and also shout out to one man, by the way. Let's acknowledge the super chat. Okay. Shout out to you. You said what noise making is going on here. The cha-ching is the only noise that I see and recognize. Thank you for that cha-ching. £2. Okay. So there is some prediction that, okay, there is more of centrists don't feel at home. Centrists don't feel like they have a place. Like centrist Democrats are not feeling at home because of certain kind of overreaches, let's say, by the extreme left. Centrist Republicans don't like the whole MAGA-ification of the Republican Party, that kind of a thing. and people express in polls more of an interest in third parties. And you have people like RFK being another data point to talk about regarding this particular narrative. But what are your thoughts on that, Dr. Thunder? Let's start with you there, okay? Do you think in 2024 we will see maybe a little shaking up of the duopoly? Again, having a critical mass of people not just expressing this anecdotal dissatisfaction with the two-party system, but actually doing something significant? What are your thoughts there, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I think that third parties in particular in local government, I think are going to have more impact. And frankly, that's where the effort that you make, you'll see a direct impact in your own community, right? It's the local politics that does that. So I don't know if I'm going to call it a shakeup. I don't know how profound we're talking, but I know that the general sentiment about the duopoly is negative. It's as if though we have to sort of continue to play the game because that's the way that the system is. As a result, as opposed to this is the system that we desire. It's kind of like we're stuck with this. Let's make the best out of it. And there still tends to be this sort of demonizing people, criticizing them for even being willing to look third party. It's a wasted vote. It's just a what's that expression? It's like what is it, like a vanity? It's like a vanity project or something. Where it's not really going to do anything. It's just you want to be able to say that you're doing X, Y, and Z. I actually think that there's more to it than that, potentially, especially in local politics. So that's where most of that is going to happen. The other thing is that on the national politics, on the national political front, there's a great deal of fear that's being displayed by national media outlets, and even directly talking to or talking towards or talking at black men, attempting to try to get them to get back in line, because I think the Democrats have quite a bit of fear about black men voting Republican, not voting, or voting third party. Any of those three things, the Democrats can't win. So we'll see what happens.
We shall see what happens indeed. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about RFK, independent parties. We're talking about the general sentiment expressed in certain polls about dissatisfaction, centrists in both parties don't feel at home because there seems to be some kind of an extremist thrust in both parties at the time, right? Now, Kaizo, you may want to comment, generally speaking, on the pool of presidential candidates. Any comments on our man Vivek Ramaswamy or whomever else, and or answer the question with regards to what you think what will happen with regards to independence? Will this mark the end of the duopoly in terms of having solid power, and will they have to kind of appease another 10% somewhere else? General thoughts as I just laid it out.
So Democrats have three main candidates, right? You got Biden, you got a woman over there, Williamson, and then also Phillips. Republicans seem to have a lot more people running for them. Trump, obviously, I agree with Dr. Thunder. He probably has he's probably Biden's biggest competitor, right? So looking at Democrats, Williamson or Phillips, these are the guys. No one really seems to be talking about them in mainstream media enough. Biden most likely will be the biggest person from that end, and then Trump from the Republican side. The thing with the independents or third party sort of people, I think because obviously, reason I'm bringing this up, you mentioned RFK, right? I don't think he's going to go far. It's not because he's independent, right? I think it's because he sounds weird. I know it sounds like a really, benign
You
point.
just found some way to bring up Hark. Go ahead, do your thing.
He
Take your
sounds
dig.
he sounds weird. I don't think he's gonna go very far. But yeah, West is there again. Um, I don't think he's gonna go anywhere either. It's great for him to sort of represent, and of course we have a lot of dropouts as well. Including uh, you know uh, Elder, right? So I think, generally speaking, yeah, Biden versus Trump. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be like, and there is my guy, right, Vivek. He is my guy, right? But the problem with Vivek is he's a little bit too much on the libtard sort of spin with a little bit of conservatism and authoritarian sort of stuff. I mean, some of his stuff is he wants to ban children from using social media, for example.
Yeah, somebody, I think it was Nikki Haley whom gave him this particular critique, and I think it was apt. Like, he sounds like Chat GPT. Now you can take that into his full
Right.
representation, his set of positions, the way he looks, everything just seems like something created by AI. It's just a little, just too right.
Yeah,
It's
it's something about it that seems not human enough, which you're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, ban children from social. I get it, right? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's where we are. But then you look at all this sort of stuff. He wants to end the H-1B visa program. The issue with this sort of ending a program like this, right? And here's where the Democrats won't vote for him, right? Because they're more on that whole neo capitalism stuff, right? You cannot fill all the jobs, right? Especially specialized skilled jobs with only Americans. For whatever reason, that's just not possible. So when you have a highly skilled visa program and you kind of want to take that off, I get it. It's for, we want to rejuvenate American industries, but that's not going to help, right? Especially when you're getting so much more illegal immigration coming from South America anyways. So this kind of seems out of touch with the current economic status of America, right? America can't be going around getting rid of highly skilled visa program when, as already mentioned, right, all these countries in the West are suffering from a lack of replacement of population, and there's just not enough skilled workers in specific regions. And exactly what a skilled worker is. It's not your qualifications. That's a minimum to be a skilled worker. It's actually about, can you do the job? Will you do the job? Do you have the right mental acuity to do the job, right? I think that's one of the issues that people don't really seem to understand, which, as you said, this is Chat GPT type response. It's like, yeah, I get it, right? You want to rejuvenate American industries, but you really do need these people who are actually skilled and experienced in their fields. So yeah, I think it's going to be out of touch with a lot of voters.
Well put. Now let's move a little bit into the kind of the economic side of things, okay? Because we have laid out our bets to put down. And again, we're going to come back at the end of the year. We're going to see if indeed Israel will be the winner, as Kaizo said, if indeed Trump wins, okay? The losers as well, the Republicans on Kaizo's side, and me talking about Ukraine, California, Netanyahu, and such and such and such. Now let's get into the markets a little bit. Let's get into the economy a little bit. Things have been rather interesting, okay? This whole time, I think there hasn't been any time, many things happened during and post-pandemic, but one of the things that definitely happened is people started paying a lot of attention to the economy. Part of this is kind of the growth of cryptocurrencies, right? Cryptocurrencies growing, hence people, you look at cryptocurrencies and like, well, what's this all about? And you hear it's about something called the Fed and the Fed printing money, and you're like, so people are quite conversant with some of the more kind of basic kind of macro economic stuff, and a lot of people are paying attention to it. So generally speaking, we know that inflation went up, printing happened, right? Because and now we know that the interest rates got increased and such. We know and unemployment is holding up, but I don't think that it'll hold up for too long. But let me ask this question. Let's start with Dr. Thunder. What company, industry, country, what even person, would be the biggest economic winner in 2024? And if you don't mind explaining why.
Yeah, so I think Elon Musk is in good shape to be a pretty massive winner. And he's, so the thing with Twitter, and then kind of, waving his FU money around, and kind of telling Disney and others where they can jump as far as the advertisement dollars. So he's sort of set a particular tone, and obviously, electric vehicles have quite a bit more that they can do. Um, um, I mean, the chip, that he's been working on, that they got cleared to start human trials. I mean, he's got a lot of things in the areas, and even sort of some dabbling in AI. He's got he's got all of the stuff, all of the things, the SpaceX stuff. Because I happen to think that 2024, there perhaps could be some quite catastrophic stuff that happens. Some doom and gloom. I don't want to say end of the world, but I want to say, pretty messed up, terrible stuff, kind of stuff could happen in 2024. And so someone like an Elon Musk, who has a lot of irons in the fire on a lot of this sort of futuristic stuff, a lot of that stuff could end up really starting to take off. So I think he's pretty primed to be a pretty
Interesting
winner.
kind of so with regards to catastrophes, Elon and perhaps generally speaking, anyone in that defense industry slash aerospace industry, right? You're saying if these kinds of things start going down, any of these companies whom are in a good position, such as Elon, will definitely. Okay, all right. So doom and gloom for 2024, huh? All right. So that's that's an interesting start here with regards to the winners in 2024. Let me say a couple of things. I think that, for example, let me talk about 2023. For example, like 2023, we saw open AI because of ChatGPT, large language model type stuff, gain a lot of valuation. It was kind of it was crazy. It just boom, Microsoft and this and that, and then American Natural Gas also did the same thing because of the war in Ukraine. For 2024, I think that startups will have a huge advantage in terms of co-pilots, which is an AI thing. Basically, you now have written into software the things that software engineers used to do. That's a way of thinking about Copilot. You have an AI software co-piloting the writing of code with you, right? So you're a startup. That's a huge type of benefit in terms of efficiency, in terms of not needing certain extra engineers. Obviously, you have to learn that, whatever. But also, there's availability of talent because these big companies like Facebook and Google are not hiring. Okay. So let me give some context here. When it was the zero interest rate environment, it was easy to raise money for your startup. That was the advantage. But you could not find talent, okay? Because the engineer you wanted to find had offers from $400,000 offer from Google and another one from LinkedIn and Facebook, right? So you're like, bro, like I raised $1 million to start this company. I can't just give $400,000 to you off the bat, right? But in this kind of environment now, interest rates are high, money is scarce, but now talent is available. And as I said, you add the ChatGPT large language model kind of co-piloting thing. These two things boost the startups that are going to come out in this particular vintage, as they say, this particular crop beginning in 2024. I think is going to be great and fruitful, such and such. If there's anybody who is interested in doing what they call becoming an accredited investor, seeing what it takes. I think there's a test now available. Before it was just a money thing, where it's like we have to make an amount of money. But actually now think that there's a test where you can take that test and become an accredited investor, what that means is you can now participate in these startups, right? So these venture capitalists that make these, but like, no, they're not listed. There's no way for you, the common man, to put a bet down on these companies unless you're quote unquote an accredited investor. So I'm saying that this particular crop will be good for the reasons that I mentioned. But go ahead, Kaizo, biggest political winner for 2024. Not
Political
economic, if
winner
I said
or
political, but
business?
economic.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think it's going to be similar to what Dr. Khan said about Elon Musk. It's companies that are going to be working within lithium, either exploration and mining, or actually processing of batteries. So, a company like Albemarle, right? It's a public traded company that processes lithium and batteries and other sort of chemical industries, and also Atlantic Lithium, which is actually linked to it, right? Which actually just recently gained a deal from Ghana. Ghana's got a huge deposit of lithium to start mining it, right? Ghanaian government's going to get a stake in the company as well in Australia. So I think these are the companies that are going to be seeing a huge boom, right? We already saw that lithium went up in price by like 600%, just recently. So this is going to keep increasing, and I believe that companies that are actually holding on to this, as we mentioned before, European Union has already agreed that no more cars by 2030 should be made that is diesel or petrol, unless for special reasons. Everything's going to be electric, right? Singapore's already agreed. Certain countries and markets around the globe, China is already on it, right? Creating electric vehicles. You need batteries for this. So yeah, lithium is the most highly dense energy that's also reliable and easy enough to manufacture and produce. So
Hey,
yeah.
Kaizo, let me ask you about this. So, so one of the issues, and I know I said something about electric vehicles, and there's a lot more room in that market, we'll say, but there are those that believe that we don't actually have enough lithium on the earth to support everyone with these electric vehicles. So if that is the case, what are some other options? I've heard discussion about graphene as a possible solution to that problem. What do you think?
Oh, great question. Great question. So yeah, you're right. There's just not enough lithium for, let's say, to replace all the cars that already exist. That will be you'll reach a point where you're mining it and there's diminishing returns. However, there are alternative battery sources, actually very good battery sources that have high density, energy capacity, and also are pretty good. Sodium batteries are actually a good example of this. There's been breakthroughs in sodium ion batteries, and sodium is way more abundant. You can literally find it in the ocean, right? Sodium chloride, etc. So yeah, sodium ion batteries will be the alternative to the lithium ion batteries because they are more abundant, significantly more, and also they're more stable and resistant to, like, let's say, fire outbreaks like lithium are. Lithium is actually a very flammable metal. Even if you just put it next to water, it already starts to fizz up, right? So in a sort of chemical solution, or however the battery is made, it is quite volatile to flames. So yeah, sodium ion batteries. Graphene is good for high capacitance, right? You can actually you can charge it up a lot and release a lot of energy. The problem with graphene is stabilizing the graphene while it reduces the energy, because graphene is a very specific shape. If you even kind of change a little bit, it just becomes like graphite, and graphite doesn't have that energy density. Graphene specific shape and also the delocalization of electrons allows it to actually function. So graphene, what they'll have to do is figure out how to put the graphene layers without it sort of shorting out in a long-term situation. Sun says sodium-ion batteries are heavier and low energy dense. Yeah, Mr. Musanda, that's true, right? But if you're building a truck, right? Let's say
Wait, hold on a second. I thought you were talking about in comparison with lithium anyway. So of course it was lower. It was the alternative step down after Dr. Thunder's comment, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, lithium is the best, right? We know this with standard, but sodium is actually a pretty good alternative.
Yeah, and I think you're
right
going to
now.
give an example, but basically, yeah, not everybody drives a Ferrari, right? That kind of an idea. So in terms of transportation, you can have maybe for trucks or some other things, slow moving, blah, 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 where you don't need, you're going to have these other batteries for for the rest of us, Dusties, that are not able to buy the high charge, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if that's exactly the kind of example. Go ahead, Kaiser.
Yeah, I was going to say more or less exactly the same thing. So sodium batteries are going to be great for, let's say, trucks, like delivery trucks, or those long distance. I guess the same thing. Lorries, just normal American trucks, etc. Because why? Because even if you have a heavier battery case for this, you can actually still end up having the same distance because you just have a bigger battery, right, than usual, and also it's much cheaper. What people keep forgetting here is cheap. If you're having a really, really cheap battery, you can actually replace it rather easily, and you can actually make it to meet purpose. Yes, it's not going to work in a Ferrari or Formula One racing car, obviously, right? But you have to kind of understand that these things have to work in conjunction, right? You've got the cars that are going to use lithium. You're going to have the other vehicles that are going to use sodium as an example. Yeah, sodium is the best probable example of something that will work in conjunction with lithium. Nothing else has met that sort of potential just yet. In the, again, we're talking about commercialization, right? When I mention sodium, I'm saying it is commercializable. Other things like graphene, we're not there yet. Yes, it has a high capacitance, high release charge rate, and fast charge rate, but it is just not stable yet, and that's the issue.
Very good, very, very good. So we have the winner. We have the winner for 2024, starting with Dr. Thunder, Elon Musk, catastrophe. He'll be in a good position. I mentioned startups.
Can I jump in? I just had a quick follow up. Because I actually, and this could just be a comment. We don't necessarily have to riff on this. See, because I actually think that plug-in hybrids is the solution to most of these issues. So with a plug-in hybrid, potentially you could use a smaller battery because you can also use gasoline, right? So, and you don't need as large of a range just on the battery, right? So say for instance, if you have a battery that's maybe about half the capacity that it usually would be for just an electric car, and say you can get 150 miles out of that. Okay, or 200 miles, we'll say, out of that. And because one of the problems still with electric vehicles is taking long trips. So for instance, I took my son with me to the Freedom Fest, where I was a panelist. I was a lead panelist, and my band also played there too. It's in Memphis. I'm in Columbus. So this is like 9 hours. Now, if I was trying to do this in an electric vehicle, say I figure out I do a pit stop somewhere, because I'd have to plug up somewhere. I think I'd have to plug up twice. Right? So, okay, now that means I have to pay for a hotel because it doesn't charge fast enough. I mean, because I'm going to run it to zero, find a hotel that happens to have a charge place, charge it up, keep going, charge it up again, keep going. So it makes the trip super long. But plug up hybrid, right? You're in a different situation. If you don't need the fuel, if you don't need to go far, don't use the gas part of it. Right? If you do, you have that available. And that way you can just use gas stations like, a reasonable person that has to do a lot of driving. I mean, I do a lot of driving and long distances as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes it not really practical or possible for me to do an electric vehicle. So anyhow,
to
go
answer
ahead.
that question, yeah, what I think ultimately will happen is we'll have a lease style of batteries for these cars, right? So you'll have your main battery, which is owned by the company, so not owned by you. If you void the warranty by doing things to it, you no longer get a replacement. So what would happen initially? Ultimately, is we'll move into like a lease, like let's say it's a rental, what we have with Netflix. You pay a subscription model, right? You buy your battery on your car or whatever it is that you're using. You go to the charging station, they just replace it.
However, also with regards to this lease thing, because Dr. Thunder is talking generally about distance, right? So there are a couple of things that I'll mention. Let's talk about the kind of trying to constrain us to shorter distances. Shout out to the World Economic Forum. People have thought about these types of things, and one of the things they're going to try to do is kind of create these very the smart cities. And in these smart cities, you kind of get everything in that kind of area. And by the way, you're going to get down into micromobility type things, such as the scooters and such, right? So that's another layer down from cars, trucks, and such. And I'm living in metropolitan Boston, or I'm in New York, blah blah blah. Okay, well, you guys are all using scooters and little trains or whatever the hell it is run on batteries. For the long distance thing, and also as you were mentioning the rental thing, lease thing, it came into my mind that because right now I think they have these mobile chargers that come and charge, but why not? You have this network whereby it's like there is always a new battery 20 minutes away, right? That you're traveling somewhere, blah blah blah, and obviously it'll vary in certain areas, right? You can't be in the top of the Rockies, right? Expecting it 20 minutes, but that there'll be this kind of a series of people driving around, or whatever. I don't need to get into the SI specifics, but that this can be a service whereby Dr. Thunder knows he's got 20 more minutes of battery. He sees where he can get the next whatever. They both track GPS, boom. He meets at this particular station. The guy replaces his battery. Him and the son have a milkshake and continue the journey.
Yeah,
I mean, like Uber, right? You just book your battery from
yeah, you're like book batteries on a long trip. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I guess.
You were just trying on this guy. He's not buying it. Okay. So yes, so we got the winners. Let's talk about the losers, okay? I'm gonna start with you here, Kaizo. Biggest economic loser, and then I can say mine, and then we'll get from Dr. Thunder. In 2024, go ahead, Kaizo.
Yeah, I think it's old media are going to be the biggest losers. They're already struggling to survive as things are with the new media sort of market economy happening. So yeah, I think all these traditional media are going to continue to suffer. The Emmy Awards and all these Grammys and all these things. What will even happen, I'm guessing, is they're going to start offering them to YouTube personalities or videos as a way to sort of try to keep themselves relevant. But I believe they will be the biggest losers.
Algorithm-based awards, AI-based award, distributed network through social media, awards happening on TikTok, not at the Emmys, the Grammy, the Academy, and whatever the Grammy equivalent is. Yeah, they run out of it might even be let me just go. Dr. Thunder, what do you think that'll be a net benefit? Obviously, you haven't thought it through. But would this be a net benefit to musicians in terms of, and I mean a certain class of musicians, will it be more democratized if it stops being the Academy that decides, but now, you have this TikTok algorithms and, YouTube algorithms that give these awards, and the awards give you a certain kind of prestige, which can boost your work and people download it more and you get more money, blah, blah, blah. What are just quick thoughts of that, Dr. Thunder?
Okay, so first of all, they'll never let that happen. Because there's too much power and money that is being centralized. It's being hoarded. So they're not gonna let that happen. But say if for some reason that did happen, in a manner of speaking, that's a little bit like the sort of what the music industry still hasn't figured out how to deal with. And that's, record companies are not really the ones deciding as much what the standard is, right? Because everybody can record. You can record in your studio in your house, so there's a lot more. There's a lot more music being produced, and there is music being produced that's at the same level as or better than it has been in the past, but there's not the same sort of quality control aspect. Because at least when you had record companies sort of controlling, what got in the door and then what got produced and then what was made available to folks, then the standard was more compressed. I mean, it was much more like you had an idea of what you were dealing with. There's a lot of crap that's being produced now also because everybody can do it. Right?
Motown.
Yeah. What about Motown? I mean, are you
No, I thought maybe it's not a good example, but I think that the quality of the kind of music that came out from there, of popular music, right?
Oh yeah,
was way
right.
better. Yeah.
No, totally. I mean, so I think that's a challenge with something like this, sort of decentralizing the awarding mechanism, these award shows and the people that are deciding and who gets to vote and stuff like that. I think that there's been some attempts by the organizations themselves to try to create a system that is more democratic, and I think that the reason that they do that is because they know that people are thinking these kinds of thoughts, like, hey, this stuff is a sham. We should force them to, decentralize this, or let's do our own thing. There's these kind of thoughts that are circulating. So, so they have sort of done some self-correction.
Yeah.
A little bit of self-correction, not that much, but a little bit, just enough to keep people having a sort of still being sort of mystified, this, by the whole process, and it's still kind of romantic and, ooh, who's going to win? And, is it going to be the one that sold the most, or is it going to be the one that, the sort of insiders really like, or whatever.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes, you have two kind of ratings, right? You have the common man rating, and you have the yeah.
Actually, Rotten Tomatoes is a great example of what's going on here, and it's interesting. There's a new movie called Rebel Moon, released by Zack Snyder and Netflix. Now, I watched the movie. Right, the writing wasn't great. The visuals were great. I like the slow motion, a little bit overused, but still great from Zack Snyder. Point is, the movie wasn't great, but it was actually watchable and enjoyable. It was just missing a couple things. But then again, Zack Snyder said, "Oh well, I only had a certain amount of time. There's a longer cut, where there's character development." So I guess what I'm trying to say here is there is the reviews from the critics, and there's reviews from the actual audience. And I don't mean the hardcore audience who think they are usually better than the critics, but yeah, no, forget those guys. They hated the movie. I watched the movie and I looked through the critics and I agreed with the critics, but I also looked at the enjoyability factor of the movie and the fact that it's a new IP, that a lot of stuff can come out of it. And I was like, it's not a bad movie, right? It actually made me want to watch the second part. And I was right. It actually came out number 1 in Netflix. They got some crazy numbers, as high as Star Wars, for example. So I think what's going to happen is, as we're having more diversification of media and different thumbnails being, for example, Netflix sends you different thumbnails, and I think YouTube will obviously start doing that too. So if someone's Nigeria, hey, they put the black thumbnail, right? If someone is somewhere else, maybe they'll change the thumbnail and make it more inclusive. But I also think YouTube and all these social media platforms will start adding an element of analog sort of algorithms there. So let me give a very precise example. So instead of just going to YouTube and you see what's there on your homepage, there will be a YouTube Nigeria, right? YouTube India, YouTube America. So I think that is going to start happening, and of course that will also allow YouTubers to start having the algorithm work more in their favor, rather than this sort of spool where everyone is just sort of swimming in, which obviously disrecognizes certain people. So there will be a manosphere YouTube sort of area you can go and go deeper into there. So it will become more like a neural network with an accessibility point. So you get the point. So I believe that's what's going to happen more, because these companies are realizing quality isn't universal as we thought. There's niches, and within the niches there's classifications, and you go down the rabbit hole much further, rather than universalizing things and then basically losing revenue, because now you're not able to keep people in your platform, because either you get them stuck on some very obscure interest that the algorithm thought that they were into, or you kind of prevent them from actually discovering new things. So interactability, choice is going to be added in these sort of platforms.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for the music thing, Dr. Thunder there, and Kaizo. Media, okay? Media is gonna die. Old media. Okay. And Dr. Thunder, before I go to you, let me talk about my biggest economic loser for 2024. I think number one, it'll be Google search is gonna lose its market share. I'm not saying Google search is gonna die. I'm saying that given large language model, given the existence of OpenAI, which means micro and the backing of Microsoft, they're going to have a real competitor on their hands, because search right now, which is Google's main thing, which is basically 10 blue links, right? Let's call it, right? 10 blue links is going to change to more of this interaction, having a conversation with someone as you drive your Tesla drives itself, and you're talking to ChatGPT, and you're asking it to maybe book a particular restaurant between 5 and 4 at this particular district of the city you're going to be at, blah, 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 those kind of things, right? So I think Google search is going to lose. And one more thing is the consumer. The US consumer is going to start losing. Now, why? Credit card balances are at an all-time high, okay? Now, the economy didn't slow down in 2022. I'm predicting a slowdown in 2023 with regards to certain kind of consumer behaviors, because they don't have infinite money. Somehow the economy has been slowing down, but people are still, kind of holding on. They have a lot of extra cash from different things, PPP and all the other money that got printed and given to them, and so on and so forth. But I think that it's going to start crashing. Some things like iPhones will feel the pain of this kind of consumer retreat, if you will. But just one last point here, that when consumers actually start getting tight on money, some things go up, actually. Things that have to do with experience, such as DoorDash and Netflix. In other words, people are going to be like, hey, I'm going to put extra guac, Dr. Thunder, okay? Extra guac on my Chipotle burrito, so I can, soothe myself with the fact, because I can't afford a house, right? I'm not buying houses. I'm not getting a new iPhone, but I'm getting extra guac. So you see things like DoorDash, Netflix, and extra guac, right?
That's a great.
It makes sense, right? As a human being, you would do that, but it's like just like, oh, so actually people do that. Yeah, they do that. Certain things go up, certain minor luxuries go up, because everyone's broke and can't afford a house. Anyways. So, Dr. Thunder, what is your biggest political loser? You said Elon Musk is going to win. What's going to lose?
Wait a minute. The media. Are we talking about media now, or what are we talking about?
In the economy, for this category, your biggest winner was Elon Musk. He's going to win.
Okay.
So the markets and whatnot. Who's going to lose in the economy?
Oh man. Yeah, I do think that home ownership is going to start going down. I think that there's going to be a lot more renting So, but I don't know that banks necessarily lose in that deal because somebody still has to own the property. Maybe more banks own the property, so then they're not. Well, then they can charge more to the consumer. Well, I guess I'm going to say the consumer then is the biggest loser,
And real estate agents.
and real estate agents. That's good, right? Yeah.
Good. So we are simpatico on the consumer. And again, there's data. Dr. Thunder's opinion about the housing market is also data driven, but also there's data regarding the credit card balances of the consumer out there. Okay. So just a quick kind of take here on recession, right? Basically, it seems like, generally speaking, we're in the part of the cycle where we need to crash. In other words, I'm giving just kind of a baseline. You don't need to understand too much macroeconomics, but everyone has heard of recessions, right? And we're in that cycle where the recession should have hit. But some would argue that because of the massive kind of both fiscal and monetary policies in 2020 era, it's that the balloon is just taking so long to deflate and burst or whatever, right? And such as we just described, the maxing out of the credit cards and such and such. Also, by the way, the federal government tends to hire a lot. This is something I did not know, but the federal government tends to hire a lot in election years, Dr. Thunder. Makes sense, right? So whomever is in power, Democrat or Republican, if the employment number is something they have to worry about, they do their part. They do their best to make sure they hold that employment number a little bit up because the federal government hires a lot of people, right? So I'm thinking that after the election, let me give my kind of prediction, I guess, as we start this particular category of 2024. I think that this soft landing theory, which is this kind of the bubble just deflates very nicely and easily, and it's going to get managed by the Fed, right? The Fed is trying to manage a soft landing thing. That's what they're doing by increasing the interest rates, and then now they've paused and they're going to start probably decreasing. But here's what I think is going to happen, right? Soft landing is not going to happen. Unemployment will go up immediately after the elections. Company valuations will crash, is what I think is going to happen. We're going to actually see a nice recession as marked by an increase in unemployment, because that's not the only, but that's one of the main and most relevant statistics regarding recession that is still not comporting with where we think it should be. Unemployment will go up definitely, most especially after the election, is what I'm predicting. So, Kaizo, your thoughts regarding seeing recession, something collapse, on people, massive layoffs, that kind of stuff, or is it just going to go down softly and what are your thoughts?
Well, it depends on the country.
We're using America. It is the most relevant one anyways.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So if we're looking at America as a point of reference, I don't think we're going to get a crash that was similar to 2008 or whatever it was. I don't think we'll see that. However, I don't think you're going to see a really slow burn either. I think we're going to get something in between a really slow burn and what happened in 2008, whereby enough people are losing their jobs. And we've already seen mass layoffs from tech companies, especially the biggest ones. And if that's, again, and these are from companies that actually require highly skilled people to work on their platforms, right, to remain relevant. But someone could argue that there was some kind of, monopoly and cartel, like, mass unemployment going on, right? Because someone could argue, right, if you go and get rid of a lot of your highly skilled engineers, well, what about the next company that didn't? And they're going to have a slight edge, competitive edge? Well, yeah, maybe they would, right? So I think that there was a crazy cartel going on, whether it was emergent or intentional, that led to that happening at the same time. So if that's the case, given how AI is growing, that's going to continue all around in software engineering, as you mentioned earlier, with Copilot and other sort of systems. It's going to go into video editing. I mean, like, for example, right now I use a system called Descript. It's a great AI. It can even mimic your voice. You can add the subtitles immediately, and it's generally quite accurate. And I think what will happen is all the normies who work in these sort of sectors are going to be replaced by those who basically embrace the new tech and then use it as a reference point. So yes, I think there'll be a mid-burn sort of mass unemployment, recessions going on. And I think the kinds of businesses that will do well are, as you mentioned, experience-based systems, right? Things that are creating a unique enough experience that basically offset the balance.
Nice. Now, Dr. Thunder, you already kind of showed your hand a little bit regarding the prospects for 2024 when you mentioned the craziness that's going to put Elon Musk in a good position. You mentioned some kind of catastrophe and such. But so I think it's probably apropos, relevant, apt to this question regarding, crash, unemployment. You start dealing with the real economic situation we're in. What do you think is going to just we're going to coast through in 2024? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think winter's coming. I think we're at the edge of winter. We've been here actually for a little bit of time. I think it's going to be rough. I think it's going to be rough. I don't think it's going to be depression level, but I think it's going to be really rough. And part of the sort of signaling that it is going to be rough, part of the signal is they are legalizing in all kinds of locations around the country the oldest profession. Right? They're either legalizing it or they're don't ask, don't tell, looking the opposite direction. And you go to certain locations and you'll see that there's a lot of professionals. You can just get on Google. If you got on Google and you did a search, I'm not going to tell you what to search for. But if you did a search, you'd be able to find images of disproportionate levels of working girls. And that's a signal, that's a sign of some things. So I anticipate that number is going to increase drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of the jobs that would be there, they're not hiring. And then many of the jobs that are available, people don't want those jobs. And they might think, I can make more money, a lot more money, doing something else, albeit risky. I don't know. I think we're in trouble. I mean, but that's a good signal when you start looking at certain demographics. What is it that they are doing? That gives you an idea of, what's actually happening, what the boots on the ground look like, what the close view looks like. So I think some folks that have maybe done some good, done a good job of saving some money and maybe tighten their belt. I think they may be able to weather the storm. But I think people that are already way to the edge, barely gripping onto the side, I think it's going to be really rocky.
Yes, indeed. And yes, we talked about frames for looking and projecting and making decisions or predictions, putting your money where your mouth is. And I think you just mentioned an important frame. In this case, the laws. What particular laws, legislation, what certain kinds of movements are taking place in certain places, and in order to help you sniff out and make these predictions. Very, very well put there. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we are case closed. As you come and click that like button. And I did not shout out this particular super chat. I'm going to do that right now. Shout out to Flexed Up. He is a cattle herder. That's what at least that's what his tribesmen do, I assume. He's no more than a dusty herder. He mentioned being a 4-dimensional herder in the chat, but thank you very much for the super chat. Okay, so we've gotten these economic predictions, right? Basically, soft landing, it seems, is less likely to happen. That's kind of our take on this, right? Now, and by the way, I think the interest rates are. Let me put this last one here on the table economically. We mentioned who the best performers are going to be, and this you may have a particular for this or you may not, right? But we already talked to who's going to be the best economic winner. You mentioned Dr. Thunder, Elon Musk. You gave your reasons. Okay, Kaizo talked about the fact that it's going to be these certain minerals being mined and in the battery technology and such in that area. I talked about startups because of Copilot and the availability of talent. However, if you could pick a, shall we say, a stock or something, right? Like the best performing investment, let's put it that way. And perhaps it's not going to be in a certain kind of maybe it's not going to be in residential real estate, given what Dr. Thunder said, right? That kind of thing. Best possible investment. Now, I'm saying that this particular year is going to mark a new era in Bitcoin / cryptocurrency, because there will be the approval of Bitcoin spot ETFs. ETFs are going to allow the boomers to participate in crypto in a way that they are used to. Now, this company called BlackRock, people have heard of BlackRock. BlackRock owns stuff. That's what they do. They're big capital guys. They create a lot of these ETFs and these what you call mutual funds, all these things that you people put your 401ks into. Vanguard is another example of a company like BlackRock. BlackRock is going to open a Bitcoin ETF, right, which greatly legitimizes Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying the price is going to go through the roof in 2024, but in 2024, it will be approved. That is a prediction. It hasn't happened yet. I think that in the first quarter, perhaps perhaps in this month, it will be approved. And also, by the way, given my previous prediction regarding the market crash and the consumer being that's going to hurt, unemployment going up, what's going to happen? There's going to be another round of printing, and the interest rate is going to drop. You raise it up to drop it down. That's how the cycles go, right? Okay, so we're nice and up right now. We're going to coast. Once the thing snaps and the disaster that Dr. Thunder described happens, then the interest rates will come falling down. What happens? Big liquidity comes into the market, and Bitcoin or crypto generally is the fastest horse in that market because it's the shallower pool. Okay, the liquidity and water type analogy work perfectly for the financial markets. That's why it's used. Okay, so the reason why Bitcoin is going to rise more than the other things when money gets printed is because it's a shallower pool of money, and money is going to come flowing in. So if you're in one of these shallower pools, you're going to get the rise. That in conjunction with the Bitcoin ETF being approved, I think we'll see certain good things happen. But does anyone, Kaizo or Dr. Thunder, have an investment vehicle of any sort, or it could even be a category that they think, hey, I want to put my bet on this one? Not investment advice, by the way. I guess I should have mentioned it this whole show. We've been saying things that I guess when you do a show like this, you have to remember to say not investment advice. But Kaizo, anything, and then Dr. Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say put your money in where the government of United States puts their money in. So Elon Musk, we're talking about his company that provides internet around the whole world, including Ukraine. Those are the surefire new. They're the new alphabet, right? Elon Musk's company, Dangote, if you're in Nigeria, those sort of places.
Good point here. So where the government is propping, these people whom the government is propping. So Dangote over in Nigeria, the particulars of his project involve refineries, right? The most recent kind of one, right? So Dr. Thunder, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is regarding Elon Musk? Should people be buying shares of Starlink? I don't know if Starlink is publicly traded. Maybe they should become accredited investor so they could go buy Starlink, or become accredited investor so they could buy SpaceX, both of which are not in the public markets, by the way. So Starlink and SpaceX and all that kind of stuff, are you willing to put your bets in there? Metaphorically, of course.
Metaphorically, yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add as far as investments. I would say where it's probably a good idea not to put your money. That's probably okay. Now, this is going to sound bad, but certain times when you're lean, you don't have a lot of capital, you're not particularly fluid, then stuff like loaning your cousin Ray money might not be something you want to do. And in the same line, there's a lot of risky sort of, I'm sorry, Black-owned businesses that you might want to pass on right now. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, I like to support as much as I can, and I'll continue to do as much as I can. But there's just certain things that are just, it's a little bit too risky if you ain't got no bread. So
Shout out to you. Yes, a direct prediction from your biggest winner to the stock that's going to go, or the investment is going to go up the most. Makes perfect sense. And we have Flexed Up mentioning commodities, which is very much in line with Kaizo's prediction of the biggest winner. Commodities, they include stuff like gold, copper, lithium. These are stuff that you trade as opposed to
I'm a fan of gold, silver, and lithium for sure.
There you go. Now, I think we got Kaizo's response on that one too as well. Put your money where the thing goes. Now let's start landing the plane. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone through predictions about whom the biggest winners are going to be politically, who the biggest losers are going to be politically, and the reasons why. We've talked about the economic landscape as well, biggest winners and biggest losers, the reasons why as well for 2024. And we will come back at the end of 2024 to this show, end of year show. We have a very nice and simple way to look back and say, hey, what hit, what missed, and why. This is the way the world works, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you'll agree with me, Dr. Thunder, that part of what it means to rise up in any endeavor, to be a leader in any endeavor, is that you are saddled with the making predictions, making bets. You are the leader. You come and you say, hey, I'm the leader, Dr. Thunder. This is the program. This is where I think we need to get to in 2024, right? This is how much we're going to sell. This is the market share we're going to get. Here's how I think we're going to get it, right? You present that to whomever you need to present it to. Maybe it's for funding or for whatever. And everyone else is just a cog in the wheel in terms of operationalizing and making this thing happen. But it's a skill, generally speaking, to be able to have frameworks with which you predict and to get in this habit of making bets, looking out there, making projections. Because one thing you'll find out is whether your mode of making projections is good or not, whether the data that you're getting in is good or not. Maybe you need to stop listening to too much Fox News or something like that. Maybe it's MSNBC or CNN, right? Maybe you need to come up with better models for predicting and so on and so forth. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end with the kind of like the social aspects, okay? Now, Claudine Gay, and I don't think I've gotten your, I don't know if you know this, Kaizo, but Claudine Gay resigned. We mentioned her, she was head of Harvard over there, right? And we know what happened with regards to her testimony in the, let me see here. My bad. A little bit of interruption right here. But we know what happened with regards to her making that testimony, and she got she got in trouble, right, for doing that. But then she got the support, and then she got kicked out. But just real quick, did you know Claudine Gay resigned? And any thoughts about that? Did you know it was going to happen, and so on?
Yeah, I mean, they got her. That's
And yeah, the thing is, they had something to as an excuse, right? The plagiarism thing. So it could
yeah, they had to find something that they could, put on paper. But I'm not gonna speak too much on it, but yeah, they got her.
There you go. So the reason I brought her up is because there's a general sense people say that quote unquote DEI, and shout out to Game Changer joining us here as we start landing the plane. How's it going, Game Changer? Yes, and he will unmute his mic momentarily. But people are saying, DEI is dying. Okay. Now, this is a complex thing. I mentioned that there's certain kinds of experiments that go on in California, with San Francisco being the tip of the spear with regards to these types of experiment that have shown to not work. That, that capital is not going to go there anymore. Capital, in other words, people with money are not going to be like, oh, let's try to run the San Francisco experiment, because they lose money, right? And many other things failed. I mentioned that they were about plus $70 billion surplus, and now they're at $68 billion deficit, all within a space of a year and a half, and all these other kinds of things. Then we have Claudine Gay. People will say, yes, this is part of the same thing. People are, we're seeing that this DEI thing doesn't work, and they're coming down. So the question is, okay, what are your predictions regarding DEI actually dying? Are we going to see this thing actually happen? I'm going to start with Dr. Thunder, because it's kind of apt, because you're in the kind of institution where it is kind of the most relevant, I think. Do you think DEI is going to retreat? Is there actually going to be a quantifiable retreat, such as the administrative positions that manage the DEI program of any institution, and so on and so on and so on, in the vein that I just kind of laid out, if the question makes sense?
Yeah, in the institution I work at, it seems as though they're behaving as though they're not going to really make any changes. I think they're going to probably just keep pressing to the end until they're forced to make changes. I don't know how you function if race can't be a consideration in any way that fulfills the purpose, the intention behind DEI, at least in its earliest iterations. I don't understand. I don't know how you do it. But I do think that folks that are sort of just powering forward, it kind of gives you an idea that race may not have been their priority anyway. So they can still more or less go after the other things that they want to. They can still prioritize women. They can still prioritize, LGBT. They can still do that, but they just are not allowed to do race, which is sort of a startling turn of events and revelation. It's like the thing is exactly the opposite of the initial purpose of affirmative action, right? Of course, affirmative action was always about, well, it wasn't always. It started in 2 years. It was able to function this way, focusing on Black men, and had a really specific reason for doing so, and that is the country actually caused the damage to the Black community through slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and a long list of things, stuff like the Tuskegee experiment and all kinds of nefarious stuff that the government did against the Black community. So, okay, how do we fix that? We need to pay back. Okay, we're not going to give you Dusty Ninjas reparations, but let's do this. Let's, who's going to spread the money around in the community the most? We know that that's a tendency that men have. Let's focus on the men. So you went from that to race can't be considered at all, but these organizations, these departments still exist. What are they doing then? They're not. So, they're continuing on doing things that I think that opponents of DEI have been saying. Now, there have been some of one Big Ten college that publishes, makes public all of its DEI hires. There was a critical article written, I think it was in Wall Street Journal, about these practices, calling them into question. And this was back when, most of these things released. This is before the what's the name? The Supreme Court struck down the racial component. So now what are you going to do? So anyhow, so that's that. I mean, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I don't know how you can continue to function fully. So yeah, I mean, the primary beneficiary of affirmative action has been white women. 84% of the recipients have been white women. We will see in the coming years if there really is such a thing as black girl magic. We'll see if this, lapping dusty ninjas in a single bound, we'll see if that's really a function of some sense of superiority that they have, or if it was primarily a function of being disproportionately favored by these institutions, because these institutions are incentivized to check more boxes. So we'll see.
Speaking of black girl magic, we have Game Changer in the building.
What's going on?
Yeah, so the question is on the table that we're rounding off with now is about DEI, but perhaps you had some other comments that you wanted to make, or perhaps a reason why you hopped on regarding the other predictions we've made: political winners and losers, economic winners and losers. Now we're saying, what do you think? It's going to be a decline in 2024. These are predictions we're making, and we're going to check ourselves at the end of the year. Decline of DEI in 2024. Go ahead.
Well, the short answer to that is an unfortunate no on the decline of DEI. There definitely needs to be a decline in DEI. So I wanted to respond to what Dr. Thunder was saying when he was asking, I don't know how an entity would look without DEI. It would look like the NBA. It would look like the NFL. It would look like any professional athletic organization where the country knows that we will eventually have to compete against other nations that don't do DEI. You see, let's face it, there's a reason why we don't have a bunch of, 4'14" Asian guys in the NBA. And that's because it is a meritocracy. And at this place in time, the demographic that we see in the NBA represents those who are most talented in it. So when you don't hire for race and you hire for talent, then that is what an industry looks like. And they know that at the end of the, during the Olympics, they're going to have to pick the best of the best to go and compete, not the most diverse or not the ones who check off the most boxes. So,
hey, can I respond real quick? I mean, because I agree with what you're saying, but that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is I don't know how DEI continues to operate if the primary reason for their existence, at least in the first place, is not something that they can consider. So I see it as being something that, I see it as something that's going to waffle. It's basically they're going to keep pressing until the end, and then they're going to not exist because there's nothing for them to do.
No, I think that something else is going on. I don't think that right now, and I did misunderstand what you were saying, but I think that it's deeper. I think that what we're going through right now is an attempt at social programming that is very strong, and whoever's backing it, they're backing it. They have extremely, extremely deep pockets in order to back it, because what they're doing is, in order to push their agenda, they're taking billion-dollar hits. They're taking, hundreds of billion-dollar hits, and they're doing it again. They'll make one crappy, put a chick in it, make her dark and make her gay. They'll keep doing this. It's astounding that they keep doing this no matter how many times the movies flop. They definitely care more about this particular agenda than they do actually making a profit, which is something that is unprecedented. I do think that it will end. I don't think that it will end in 2024. Now, as far as, and I wanted to make clear, the intentions behind affirmative action is far different than what DEI is. Affirmative action, the initial intent, and what we're talking about is we're talking about the men of the Jim Crow era that really wanted an equal shot at a janitor's job is far different than a 20-something female saying, oh, there aren't enough top female positions in Microsoft or some crap like that, which is ridiculous, because you went from a group of men asking for very low tier positions to a group of women asking for ridiculously high tier positions. That's the intention has gone completely astray. And the reason is because the initial prospects didn't want DEI. What they wanted was that race and gender not be included in the selection process. For an example, longshoremen, you had the people who worked the docks back in the day, and then you had various minority groups, or at least groups that were then considered minority, like, for example, Polish or Irish, or Italian. Nowadays, those are all considered white, but back then they were considered minority groups, and they would determine who got the job based on their ethnicity, not like, hey, how about that 7 foot tall guy, with the broad shoulders? I think that we should hire him first. It's so it was made for that. It was basically them asking that society do not consider race at all, meaning that you can't hire this person based on race. And as a way to enforce it, they came up with affirmative action, meaning that, if your company or the way you hire is disproportionately, one group of people, then it must mean that you are considering race in doing so. And the enforcement of that led the door open to DEI and the insanity that we have now. And what's going on now with the dismissal or the resignation of the president of Harvard is people don't know what to do when two minority groups go at it. Because you have to pick a side, right? I mean, and you have been programmed to always pick the side of the minority. But, what's going on, and I'm not going to say the countries, but we all know what's going on now. And you have two protected classes of people, or at least people who are considered protected groups here in the States. And then you have somebody like the president of Harvard, who is pressured to speak for or speak on the topic because of the way the students are behaving. She's confused. She's like, you can't speak for one group without speaking against another. You can't. So this is DEI biting her. She's getting bitten by this. It's easy to see who the bad guy is in Russia, Ukraine, because they are both Slavic groups of people. So you just look at who's the aggressor. But here, she's forced to walk on the eggshells that we as men, as heterosexual men, have been forced to for decades now. So it's quite poetic. And yeah, I do think that the whole plagiarism thing is a railroad. And the reason for that is because she would lose a lot more if it was more serious. I don't have a literary-based degree or a field of study, so I don't know how damning, accusations of plagiarism would be or should be, and how it's typically enforced. But just the fact that she just lost her presidential position really means that it's not as serious as it would have been.
Okay. Nice contribution here. Nice submission, as some people like to call it. Well, we're going to start landing the plane with kind of like your final thoughts. We'll start with Kaizo and then Game Changer again. final thoughts. Okay, Kaizo, you gave us with regards to let me tax my memory here, see if this works in a non-clumsy manner. But with regards to the winner, you said politically Israel, right? Israel, the United States, they're gonna win that stuff there, and perhaps certain events such as the one that happened in 10/7 has given Israel the opportunity to do certain types of things. And then the biggest loser, I forget who you said, but I know that I mentioned Ukraine. Uh, Dr. Thunder says that the biggest loser is going to be the Republican Party because for him the biggest winner though is going to be Trump. So and he explained the means by which that happens, right? Economically, we have Elon Musk winning. I say that some startups are going to win because of Copilot and availability of talent. And Mr. Kaizo brought in the things like lithium, and we were supported in the chat by somebody talking about commodities when we went down to the space of the actual investment. Dr. Thunder stuck with Elon Musk, says, yes, go ahead, buy that Starlink. He also likes gold, lithium, silver. And I mentioned that Bitcoin is going to see something rather monumental happen, even if the price doesn't rise up this year. But that ETF, which is going to get approved, it's a prediction that it will be approved, will definitely legitimize it and allow for further participation and whatnot. And with that, closing thoughts, starting with Kaizo. Kaizo is muted, gone, internet, whatever. Girlfriend is screaming at him, whatever it may be. We're going to move on to Game Changer.
Okay, so as far as the predictions go, I have to look into the Bitcoin thing. I would probably buy just based on your predictions. So there's that. The reason why I put precious metals and international currencies is because the dollar is losing its stability as far as things like the fluctuation of the prime index, and not just that it's increasing, but that it's not stable. It's not consistent. There was a time when we always knew what it was going to be in the next 3 months, and now that's not true. I'm not certain if it's going to go up or down in the next 3 months. And I think the difference between the US dollar and all other currencies is its stability and predictability. But it hasn't been stable for quite some time. It's just that society is taking an extremely long time to react to its instability. And that is what's problematic. But that's what's sustaining it, excuse me. Once that changes, then we're going to see, massive fluctuation of the value of the dollar, good or bad. And then it'll be very similar to many other currencies throughout the world. And I think that at that time, other nations will start to rely on the dollar less and rely on their own currency as a form of stability, making their currency more valuable. So I see that prediction. I don't know if it's something that will happen as soon as 2024, but I do see that as being a thing. There are a lot of boomers who aren't ready to embrace Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or anything like that anytime soon. So for stability, they might go to what they're familiar with, and that is the precious metals. They're also finding more technological use for certain precious metals, conductivity of gold, things like that, the ability to absorb carbon emissions through platinum. So I could see that happening. Another thing, I do see massive, since we were predicting, I do see massive unemployment and industries going under. For example, here in California, they're raising the minimum wage to $20 an hour. Back when I made minimum wage, it was $4.25. So a lot has changed. A lot has changed over time. $20.
Now you see, do you see that as being a basically a negative thing? Or what do you think?
Negative for some, positive for others. Of course, it's a positive thing for those who make minimum wage. and I don't know what the minimum wage prior,
Yeah,
was,
but do you
uh,
think that these companies are going to hire as many employees if they have to pay them more?
I think that companies hire currently as few employees as necessary in order to keep the company afloat. Like, I don't think that they just hired extra people before because it was so cheap. So, like, if they feel that it takes 20 people to, complete a job or to keep, this particular company running, then they only hire 20 people. They didn't hire 25 just because they thought it was fashionable. But then there are those who do. I mean, we probably see jobs that was just cosmetic, like a Walmart greeter, go away, but or a restaurant hostess, maybe I could see things like that going under.
And
But
obviously, and I know, everyone is aware of this particular category, but obviously there are categories where you have the option, right, to go robotic or AI and such, right? So go ahead.
yeah, I don't see robotic technology taking away physical jobs anytime soon. Especially not in 2024.
How about all the McDonald's and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's not robotic. I mean, that's just technological. Okay, I see where you're going with that. They had that automated McDonald's. I still don't see that happening anytime. Being a major thing anytime soon. I know that they have the one and it's supposed to work as a vending machine. I still don't see that being a thing anytime soon. But I do think that people are going to look for it with the raise of minimum wage and everything. I do think that people are going to look for automated ways and automated processes and procedures in order to replace human beings. Um, and that's because it's become very expensive. I do see like a lot of smaller businesses going under, at least in California, as a result of this. And I do see like fewer independent contractors, like DoorDash people or Uber Eats people. And I don't know how much they make, but maybe even Uber drivers themselves. I could see it being a lot fewer of those because why would you put the miles on your own car when you could just flip the burger as opposed to deliver the burger? So I do see things like that going under, which was a job for a lot of people. Maybe not the drivers themselves, or maybe not the um, like Lyft, Uber drivers themselves, because I think that they, at least in San Francisco, I know that they make a lot of money. I know that they make more than $20 an hour on San Francisco during a busy stride. So I don't think that. Well, maybe in some of the smaller areas, yeah, I can see that going under. Um, but the point is that it's not stable as far as the economic aspect goes. It's not stable. It's not stable that the minimum wage in one area is significantly higher, maybe 3 times higher than what it is in another area. And we're not talking about, just because San Francisco, the Bay Area in general, is significantly more expensive. This is a California law. This is which means that, in places like Fresno and Bakersfield, which is not very expensive, the minimum wage has went up, and that's going to put a dent in local industry. That's going to make things difficult to start a small business. If you want to start a small shop, a bodega or something like that, then you got to pay the person $40,000 a year, and you don't even know if you're going to have any customers. So I don't know. I see that being a problem, a California problem. But here I'm taking too long. What was the other things? So DEI, I already spoke on that. President of Harvard spoke on her. Anything else?
No, I think you pretty much covered the economy, and you covered the DI thing that we ended up with. Perhaps maybe you can have one word on who you think the biggest political winner is going to be for 2024.
Okay, so yeah, for 2024, a lot of people, what's happened in recent years is that ever since the Obama administration, the left has developed a sense of empowerment and insatiability that I didn't predict. To be quite frank with you, I did not predict that if you give a group of people the right to marry, that within a 10-year time span, they'll be demanding, their own bathroom. I did not see that coming. And I think that what they're doing is they're losing a lot of the centrists. They're losing a lot of the people in the center who would be for the marriage, but is not for, the teaching of this ideal, to young people who haven't really determined, who haven't hit puberty yet, and they don't even know what they like or what they're into. So and that's just one. That's just the rainbow side of things. There's also so basically that's fueling DEI. DEI is really becoming just its own repulsive things. You can't include one. You can't have D and the I. Let's just start right there. You can't. Like, if you're going to include one group, you have to exclude another. So, which means that every group is somehow being excluded in the name of DEI, even if you are diverse. And it's causing more harm than good. And because we have this economic, we have all of these economic problems going on, people are becoming a lot more competitive and a lot less compassionate to diverse groups, and they're going to just vote against it. So I do feel that more right-leaning political groups will see a bump. I don't know if that's going to, just push the election to their favor. Who knows?
Nice. And it seems like, Kaizo, you want to give your closing thoughts if you're back?
Oh, can I say one thing?
Oh, go ahead.
Because somebody in the chat room says, are there exemptions for businesses with less than 50 employees? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you are a young person or a person who's a person with a skill set that's not very marketable, then and you had a choice, why would you work for a company with 50 or less employees if that's the case? You might as well work at Walmart as opposed to your local bodega. So the local bodega will still have the same problem. Even if they do hire somebody at, say, $10 or $15 an hour, that person is just waiting for Walmart to give them a call.
Kaizo, closing thoughts.
Yeah, so I say, looking at the biggest losers, we're going to have old media. Biggest winners, we're going to have Israel, America, and all their allies. And in terms of economic winners, we're going to have commodities, right? Generally, the things that there's a monopoly as well as some kind of cartel stuff going on. Lithium is an example.
There you go. And Dr. Thunder, get to close us out. Closing thoughts, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, as far as the winners, I said I think Trump will be the biggest winner politically, and the Democrats actually together, which is a strange thing. I said that because the Republicans are going to take an L because they will be the party of Trump. They were the ones that propped him up. They were the ones that got him through the primary process. There's one, right. So it'll be all of that. So I think that the Republicans will end up losing in that deal, because what'll happen is the pendulum will get pushed further and more aggressively by the Democrats when they get back in power. That's the way that this political thing works. The principle, an eye for an eye, was for the purpose of a balance. We don't have that sense of a balance because the natural tendency is, if someone cuts your hand off, you want to take their arm. And so that's what we see in politics. So if the belief is that the Democrats, they did us dirty like this, then the Republicans, they don't just simply right the ship. They've got to go as far or further in the opposite direction past unity. So that's what happens. So I think in that scenario, Americans, the voters, people that actually believe in the process, that actually think that their vote is going to cause some sort of positive occurrence, they're also the losers in this deal. And I know it sounds pretty humdrum and doom and gloom and everything. As far as the economic winners, I said that I think Elon Musk is primed to take advantage of a lot of volatility and a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of bad stuff that is coming down the pike, a lot of financial instability. So I think he's in a good place because he outer space, right? So if you had a catastrophe here, that's a good place to spend money. So SpaceX, what is it? The chip, the chip that got okayed for human trials, to put these chips in people's brains so you can, basically surf the internet with your brain. So that stuff is coming. That seems like something that's going to win in the long run, regardless as to if people are warning you about the potential trouble, but problems with that, the danger with something like that. His dealings with AI, Twitter. He's in a good place, so he's going to win. And of course, the losers are going to be the financial losers are going to be probably homeowners and people that have a lot of money saved. Well, some money saved, we'll put it that way, because their money is becoming less and less valuable every day. And there you go. So that's my thought. And of course, DEI is a loser. That's going to eventually be totally done. And then, of course, the ultimate loser are the people that affirmative action was intended to help in the first place, which never were helped, by the way. All right.
All right, indeed. And we will see you in 52 weeks where we will recheck back. But in between now and then, for the 50 weeks between now and then, we'll be back here every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Case closed. Place to be for the highest level conversation, the most relevant topics in the space, ladies and gentlemen, with an all-star panel. And shout out to the super chatters. I believe we had Flexed Up, we had One Man, and we had Dottie Galdem. I believe those are whom. Yes, I think so. I think I got it all. But again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Peace. We are out.
Peace.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what was behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
You need to log off.